This is a really exciting day for me. This is the beginning of a new podcast journey, the Movie Manny Podcast. Something I've been wanting to work on and do for such a long time, and it's happening. No turning back. The flip has switched. The green light has kind of gone on. It means like, holy shit, this thing is starting. There's no turning back. I can feel the wind blowing at my back. It's pushing me in a certain direction. And it's like, oh, shit. You're heading in the right direction. You know, and the direction is talking about movies, loving movies. Cinema is not dead. Love going to movies, love seeing movies. And this is going to be a place where I get to express that with other people that feel similar or maybe different or maybe, you know, it's a different perspective. And I feel like I have a different perspective, and the people that are going to join me are also going to have different perspectives. And we're going to talk about movies, but we're going to do it in a different way. I listen to a lot of movie podcasts and everything like that. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do a movie podcast, if I'm really going to do something, I want it to be a little different. And it's not like I have to try to make it different. I just have to try to be myself. That's the trick of it. It's not like, oh, you know, how do I do all these weird different things to try to make it stand out as a podcast? But I think that's the wrong strategy. I think what I really need to master is how am I comfortable enough to really be myself on the mic, where I could talk about movies like I'm just sitting there talking to my friend and being like, dude, we fucking love movies and this is why. And that's why, you know, I really wanted to start this episode off to kind of really set the intention going forward of what this is. You know, this is the freaking, what I would consider the Prologue podcast. You know, this is just going to set the intention going forward of how this is going to be. What do I want this to be, and how do I want this to be about? But I want to talk about movies. I want to talk about the movies that I love. I want to talk about the movies that I see. I want to talk about my experience watching movies in theaters and even in streaming too, you know. I want to talk about it all. I feel like the era of comic book movies is coming to an end and a new era is beginning. And that is why I'm so hyped. And that's why I want to start now, because I feel it in my bones that a new era of cinema is upon us. And I can't wait to see what is in store for all of us. I want to be here to talk about it all. I want to document the new films as they come out. I want to review them. I want to be critical. I want to be overcritical. I want to be undercritical. I want to just talk about the subtext of films. I want to just have these discussions with other people that feel the same way and just fucking get lost in it. That's my only intention with this podcast. Like, I really just want to get lost in films. I mean, because talking about films makes me happy. It really kind of charges me up inside. Like, wow, my battery is full. You know, after I have a movie discussion, I feel like, damn, that's my purpose. You know, so why not do more of that? You know, if I know that is what's filling my damn battery up to the 10 out of 10%, why not keep going and doing that same thing if I know it's going to make me happy? And that's what this is about. You know, this is about just keeping consistent, you know, not always needing a guest. You know, guests are important, interviews are important, but I want to be self-sufficient. I want this podcast to succeed even in a solo episode. I want to be able to come talk about movies, talk about anything, and for it to be substantial, for it to have a meaning and a purpose and some kind of viewership and people getting something from it, like, that's the main goal. That's what I want this to be. That's what I want this to be, for people to go to the Movie Manny Podcast and get some, you know, a different insight, a different perspective, but also a one that, you know, a perspective that cares about film too, you know, that fucking, obviously I've fucking been watching film since I was a kid. I would love to make a film, you know, I have that inside of me, you know, so it's like, you're getting my perspective on things, you know, and that's all I can offer, you know, but I promise you, I fucking love films, I analyze them, and I want to share some of that analyzation with whoever's out there that wants to listen. Send some things in, you know, communicate back and forth. I'm down for the conversation. I just am hungry for something new. I grew up in the 90s. So it's like I remember independent cinema. I remember when all these obscure movies came out all the time and you were so surprised and it was like so low budget, but they had incredible stories and incredible characters and incredible scenes, where you're like, "Oh shit, a few great scenes in a movie, like that'll get people talking." But that's what I miss. It's definitely been a degradation of film quality with this streaming bullshit. But I'm a streamer too. So it's like I'll talk shit about it, but at the same time I'm right there fucking streaming with the rest of everyone else. But I do want to see more movies in the theater in 2024. I know the pandemic and everything kind of fucked things up for everybody, It's like nobody went to the theaters during that time and it got everybody in these habits of just, Apple Plus, Hulu Plus, Disney Plus, Prime, and all these things that now you have to have every single subscription to see all the movies. And it's kind of a mess, and it's like I miss just having that one hub of the theater to go see all the movies in. Like I become nostalgic for it. But even though I remember when it was just that before streaming, I would complain that it took too long for movies to come out and I would never be able to see enough movies. And now we have all the movies at our fingertips. We have tons of movies on streamings, but doesn't it feel like it's too much? Does anybody else out there feel overwhelmed? Does anybody else out there feel like it's just so hard to fucking make a decision at the end of the night what to watch? You always feel like you're missing out on something. No matter what you pick, it's like there could be something else out there that you just haven't scrolled. It's just one scroll away, and you'd be able to find the perfect movie, And I think that sucks. I hate that. I hate that feeling, and I'm subject to it all the time. I'm that guy. Click, click, click. 30 minutes in, everybody's like, come on, man. Like, pick a fucking movie. Like, let's just watch something. It's better than watching you scroll, But the streaming kind of fucks up my brain like that. It always makes me think there's something better that I just can't see off screen that's going to pop up if I just hit the left arrow button. But anyway, so enough about streaming. I really, more than anything, yes, I'm going to see a lot of movies on streaming this year, but I want to see a lot of movies in the theater because I believe in the theater. I believe in the experience of sitting in a communal setting with people you don't know or people maybe you do know and just watching a movie together. I think that is the most perfect moment in someone's life when they're in a theater watching a movie. I mean, to me, that is one of the highs of this existence that we call life. Because you get to watch a movie kind of by yourself, but with people at the same time, because it's a very personal experience. It's like you're sitting there in a dark theater, you're just watching the screen, you're experiencing everything internally. It's kind of an individual experience. But then, if you're in a crowded theater, you might hear somebody laugh. You might hear somebody, really big laugh and or to whisper to their friend about something. And that immediately changes your experience. Maybe for better or for worse, but for me, usually for the better. I like having that communal experience where other people are also experiencing and reacting in their own ways, and their reactions is affecting my reactions, and I can react. And when I react, they're going to hear my reaction. And I know I'm probably complicating it too much, but it's something I think about a lot because I always wonder why. Why do I enjoy the movie theater so much? Why do I enjoy that experience so much? And I'm breaking it down to feel like, damn, it's like it's because you're experiencing it solo, but you're also experiencing in a group at the same time. So it's different than when I watch a movie by myself at home on a laptop with headphones. It's just a different experience, because I'll laugh, but I'll laugh to myself. And if you laugh and no one hears it, did you really laugh? And isn't it great to, after you watch a movie, to know that other people have seen it too, and then maybe you could talk with them after and everything? It just, the whole watching a movie at home by yourself sometimes, it doesn't hit that same way, So I just really want to see more movies, talk about more movies. One movie that I recently saw yesterday was The Holdovers. I gave it 3 out of 4 stars. I really, really liked it, but I did not love it. And I wrote a little review about it. Basically, just saying that, I really did like the film all the way through, and it does pack some emotional punches. Paul Giamatti's great. Dominic Sessa is great. Divine is great. All the actors, awesome. And it does, at the end, it does what it's supposed to do. It packs that emotional punch. But for me, it felt a little too close to Alexander Payne's movie Sideways, and Alexander Payne is the director of The Holdovers. He made a previous film called Sideways in the early 2000s, one of my favorite films. And I just felt some of the emotional high points of The Holdovers kind of felt like it was riffing on stuff that, it's already been done in Sideways. It just you'll see like individual scenes, and they're great scenes, but I don't know, maybe it was just me. I just was reminded too much of almost very similar scenes in the Sideways movies. And it doesn't help that Paul Giamatti, the lead actors in both films, and he plays very kind of similar characters in both, so that kind of knocked it down a couple of pegs for me. But I am a huge fan of Alexander Payne films, like I said, and I definitely recommend seeing The Holdovers. It's streaming on Peacock now, so I mean that's another thing. I never had Peacock before, but I wanted to see The Holdovers, so I subscribed to Peacock for a month. But then as soon as the as soon as the month's over, I'm gonna unsubscribe. So with a lot of these streaming services, I'm hopping all around. If a new movie comes out on Apple Plus that I want to see, boom, I'll get Apple Plus for a month, and then I'll unsubscribe. I'm not loyal to any of these streaming services. I will hop around because it's like none of them are consistent at all. Hulu has some pretty good content. I'm not going to lie. Hulu has, it seems like, enough TV stuff, enough, not the greatest movie stuff, but, Hulu, we've been sticking around for a while. They got pretty good content. That's the longest I've stayed probably loyal to a streaming service without cutting it and moving on to something else. But, a lot to be excited for in 2024. A lot of good releases. Mad Max is coming out with a sequel, Furiosa, which I'm really, really excited about. Plus just a bunch of other cool movies, stuff that I probably haven't even heard of yet, that I'm just excited for this podcast because it's going to get me to see more movies. It's going to get me to talk about it after. I'm also going to write my reviews. This is the Movie Manny Podcast. Instagram coming soon. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. I just want to document this shit, and I just want to start it somewhere, and I just want to do it consistently. So I'm not trying to overcomplicate my life. I'm just trying to make things simple, and I'm trying to make things achievable, and I'm trying to achieve that shit. So that's definitely my goals in 2024 for this Movie Manny Podcast. And my thing each interview is I want to ask the guest, I want to be like, what movie have you seen recently, or what movie did you see last year that really had an effect on you? That really had some sort of just, effect on you whatever way. Like, how did it affect you? Why did it affect you? Why should people see it? What was it about? I want to explore a film that, not every film has an effect on you. Not every film leaves you with that. But usually somebody has one film in the back of their brain that they want to talk about and that they want to basically recommend to other people, for people that haven't seen it. Like, that's the best thing. When you know a movie's fucking good, when you know a movie's fucking awesome and somebody else hasn't seen it, the best thing you could do is recommend it to them. And then they come and they see and they come back to you like, oh my God, you blew my mind. And then you're like, dude, well, if you like that, then you got to also see this, and then you just start curating for them, and it's fucking awesome, because you want to share that knowledge, you want to share that love, that feeling that you have when you see a film. You want to share that with other people. You want to be able to pass that same feeling on to them, and then maybe they could do the same, with films that they've seen. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want this to be exciting. I want people who love movies to love this podcast. And I'm going to keep consistent for you all. I got juggling a lot of things. I know with Soloka and basically just family life and everything, there's a lot going on, but this is going to be a priority. And I'm super grateful for anybody who listens or anybody that participates, shares, or tells a friend. I truly appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Until next time, Movie Manny out. It's a Movie Manny Podcast. So it looks like we're officially recording.
All right.
And I gotta immediately talk about where we're at. This is such an incredible setting, Eddie. This is such a beautiful, beautiful cinematic setting. How are we here right now?
Well, this is the 10th Avenue Arts Center, and this is where many plays in San Diego have been put on, including the Evil Dead musical. Oh. And Jeff and the team here have just done an incredible job of putting this together and having such an awesome setting. And really, we've been working together for about 6 months on creating a new revival house type thing for a movie theater down here in downtown by using the settings here. There's one here. This is the main stage here that you're seeing. And we're going to be presenting the January Giallo opera restoration tonight. And
oh my God.
Strip to Kill.
So tonight, this is the first time that you're screening a Popcorn Reef screening in this theater, in this setting?
We're screening this here tonight for the first time, but we also do screenings up on the 4th floor where we have a more intimate, like 40-seat theater, and you guys awesomely helped us build the screen for that.
Dude.
This one is a little bit
This
of
is
a
epic. This is like the IMAX of
from
Revival
here,
House
but-
Theater. This is like so fucking sick. And it's like, so the Giallo's going down tonight, but
Yep.
how, Eddie, you said it's a 1-year anniversary of Popcorn
Yeah.
Reef. So what are the origins? What's like the origin story of Popcorn Reef?
So, this really started as just me wanting to show movies here in San Diego. I'd been working as the marketing manager for Cinematic Void since 2020, like during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And that's up in Los Angeles. It's part of the American Cinematheque, and Jim Branscombe runs it. And we had a really awesome time working together. And I'm helping to do the marketing for the screenings and all that. And I would go up to LA all the time, and I was like, I want to have this down here in San Diego too.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
Yeah, so I wanted to do like a bit of an offshoot of it at first. That was kind of the original idea, and we did a screening a year ago. Well, it wasn't exactly today, but a year ago next week for January Giallo, which is a Cinematic Void series. We did one down here at the Regal Mira Mesa Theater, which is my favorite movie theater and where I grew up going, and I've seen probably like 1,500 to 2,000 movies there over the years.
And that's a Regal. That's a Regal theater.
That's a Regal theater.
And why do you love that theater specifically?
I love that theater. I mean, I grew up going there. I've been there since it first opened in, I think, 2000.
Oh, shit.
2000? I think 2000.
Okay.
The first movie I ever saw there was Mission Impossible 2. I remember.
Nice. Okay.
Which I still don't really like.
Who was it? Who directed that?
John Woo.
John Woo.
directed
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The John Woo
Fuck
one.
yeah. And is that like your least favorite Mission Impossible?
I think that, is it the 6th one?
It's hard to keep track
Not the
now.
last one, but the one before that I was a little frustrated with. But I think they're
Fallout. Fallout?
Was it Fallout? Was that the one with Henry Cavill?
I think no. Wait. I think so. No. Wait.
I mean, they're all really. I think they're pretty good.
all fucking
I
awesome,
think
yes.
that the John Woo one was it dragged a little bit for me. But
Yeah.
awesome action sequences. I don't want to
But
throw any shade at Mission Impossible.
But that
The
is
last one was incredible.
Yes, the last one was incredible, and also I really love the first one too.
Yeah, the first one.
I just
How can you deny that? And then I think my favorite is the Ghost Protocol one.
Oh,
that's when they kind of
yes,
amped
yes.
it up a little bit.
Oh my god, where it becomes like it's like an event film where it's like
Exactly.
what will Tom Cruise do next, which I'm a fan of. You know, honestly, when somebody gets to that level, you're just in awe. And I root them on.
Totally.
And so, Mission Impossible 2 is the first movie you saw at Regal Cinemas. And I'm doing a little segue here, Eddie. I know, but I don't know where this is gonna take me, but I wanted to hear about your first time. Yeah, just some of the movies that you saw at the theater. That in the beginning, because 2000s, were you already a seasoned moviegoer by then?
No, I mean I was 12 at that time, so I mean maybe I was a seasoned moviegoer, but I really, I mean. At that point and all through high school and all that, it's just me and my friends would go all the time to the movies. And I wouldn't consider myself a cinephile or anything like that. I had a little bit of a DVD collection and all that, but it wasn't until my early 20s that I really got into film more seriously. And I didn't watch a lot of cult films, which is the type of stuff that we normally show here. I didn't watch that I didn't get into that until my early 20s.
But what changed? I mean, in your early 20s, what triggered film as something more?
Well, I was really fascinated with the idea of becoming a screenwriter. So
Nice.
I studied movies, and I still study movies. And every time I watch a movie, I consider it studying something. And, so I started by watching Gladiator, Saving Private Ryan, like that type of stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then from there, I realized I started watching some foreign films, even just like contemporary foreign films. And I realized that every time I watch a foreign film, I'll learn 5 times the amount, and I'll get more of a perspective on what a movie can be from watching a foreign film than I ever would any movie that's a Hollywood movie or anything like that.
But what was your first experience seeing a foreign film? Because sometimes you can go through life and you never experience one, but is there somebody that turned you on to it, or how did it come into your life?
How did it come into my life? I don't really have an answer. I mean, I have or had, I guess we no longer have it, the DVD Netflix subscription. And so I started kind of combing through Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
I think one of the first foreign films that really resonated me with was Onibaba, the Japanese ghost story with the masks and all that.
Okay,
And,
okay.
just seeing those type of like fantastical images, and especially seeing it from a different culture where some of the stuff is lost in translation. I have no idea what it means to that culture, but to me, it's like, whoa. But in that same vein, when I did that, I would then realize over time that cult films and exploitation films from the 70s and the 80s, even American, mainly American-made ones, is really kind of where a lot of people were able to express the full version of what they want to show, or they'll just kind of go for it and do whatever the hell they want. And
what made the 70s different?
Made the 70s different?
Like, why?
I really do think that, there was something in the zeitgeist during the 70s that was encouraging like a challenge to authority, and encouraging like a questioning everything. I don't really know historically why that is. I don't want to speak on that because I didn't live through that time. I was born in 1988. But I think looking back on it, it was a constant kind of questioning everything, which kind of pushed innovation. And at the same time, there was that drive-in market. So Roger Corman and all them, and AIP, and all that was able to push in there and make movies for people. They don't think about that when they're making movies today, that people that might want to see something wild with lots of nudity or graphic violence or something also are intellectual people that would like to have something, of resonance come in. And I think there was always something of resonance coming in, even with most Hollywood films in the 70s. So the exploitation movies, even though it might have been accidental, and you had a lot of filmmakers making their first film that wanted to say something, but also were required to put tits and ass in it too. Like that marriage of the two is really just gives like the ultimate expression to me of as wild as you want to go, and as as out there, and the fullest kind of fantastical expression you can have.
And is Popcorn Reef basically keeping these films alive in some way, or?
Well, I think we're small on the blip of keeping them alive. Honestly, like a lot of the cues that I've learned so much from a lot of the Blu-ray releasing companies that are putting stuff out and have been putting stuff out for the last, and then DVD before that. But the boutique labels that are doing restorations of these films, and AGFA, who is distributing most of the films that have been restored, and that's who we use to be able to show these here. Those guys are the true champions of. So
who is behind that? Who is championing for basically preserving films?
Yeah, so I'd say these boutique Blu-ray releasing companies. When I first started getting into this, it was Arrow that was the market leader. They're a British company, and they have put out. I was going through it, and I'm thinking about trying to do like a tribute to Arrow this year, and do a couple of double features of just how many movies and how many rabbit holes I've gone down because I learned about something through watching a movie on an Arrow Blu-ray. And really, when they put things together, they have booklets, they have hours of special features typically. And when I'm done with a really crazy movie, even if it's something that someone's considered trash, like from the early 80s or something, and it's like, oh, this is a garbage or a video nasty or something like that, I feel like I've completed like a film school of some sort by the time I've watched the film and it's beautifully restored, and I can understand all that, and then learning about it after, and the amount of care that's put into that is just amazing. And Vinegar Syndrome has been they're another market leader, and their commitment to restoring old films has been incredible. Severin, we've got here coming tonight, has put out a lot of things I've never heard of before, and they're always pushing the envelope and putting things out. Like last year, I don't know if you've heard of the Black Emmanuel series.
No.
It's a series of exploitation films that were made in Italy.
Okay.
And it's based on Emmanuel, which was the erotic film series, but it's kind of a rip off of that.
Okay.
But they made, maybe like 15 films, something like that. There might be more. I don't know exactly. Yeah. But last year, Severin restored all those movies and put out like a 25 disc set of everything. And it's like, I haven't even been able to get into that yet. But like,
but
that's like, you could do that for like 2 years or something if you're pacing yourself, and really to be able to dig in there. And it's amazing that they're being restored and preserved. And, I think for everybody that's into this stuff, where it's really feeling it is we've got I don't know if it's 10,000 people in the country or what.
Yeah.
But like, you know, those people, if they keep buying it, then, and if they keep coming to shows like this, and, you know, whoever the Popcorn Reef is of, you know, on the East Coast or whatever it is, like in every city, hopefully every major city has something like this. And those guys are giving us new stuff to show. AGFA, again, and they're a division of the Alamo Draft House. And their mission is to, you know, put these things out and have them easily distributed. And it's very easy for me to work with them.
So these are the film gods then. So much appreciated to them
absolutely.
that they're keeping film alive and films like this.
That's what I consider. Yeah. I think that's a
100%.
perfect way to say it.
And why is it important to see a film with an audience in a theater? No matter what the setting, why is it important?
I don't think I could have it any other way, really. I mean, there's been several really cool experiences I've had watching films at home. And I think typically they're more intellectual experiences. And I don't know if I would change those experiences, but especially when you're watching a comedy or if you're watching a genre film that's, you know, built on action or built on shock value or horror or something, getting that positive vibe from other people and kind of knowing, oh, okay. I mean, you can watch something really depressing too, and then you can hear somebody laugh because they're awkward or like they're ashamed of it or whatever, and then you can feel like you're not alone like in that. I really think that's something, but there's also the comedy element too, where it's like, hey, we all had a time together tonight and we all laughed at something together, and that's, you know, I think it's priceless.
And 100%, I agree. And I'm just trying to think if this is weird or not for me, because I go to the theater a lot. I've always gone to the theater, but I like being in a crowd with people, but I like going to the movies. I like watching it alone. So I don't
going to the theater, but
I
going
go
alone?
to the movies by myself,
Oh,
but I
do that all the
love
time,
watching.
too.
So
I mean, I see so many movies in theaters. Like I normally go at least on average 3 times a week, and I normally go by myself because normally people don't want to go.
See, but not even yes.
Maybe we'll go together now. I didn't know that.
But no, 100%. Yeah, dude. Because
or not. Because I know what you mean.
No, because sometimes, you know, if you bring somebody to the theater, and I know you're not, but I mean that, you know, they're asking questions or whatever. I just like to be right in there, and I like it. I'm a very introverted experience, but I also like it to be communal. I want both at the same time. I want to be very focused on the movie, but I like to hear other people laughing and having a good time.
And then I guess there's the other element of it, which is that even if I'm in a private screening or whatever, it's that epicness and that spectacle of it's a giant screen. You're not the one playing it. You're kind of there and you get immersed in something that, you know, and that's a lot of what we've been working on in Popcorn Reef is coming up with a specific experience, and then really I've even made the motto of it kind of celebrating the spectacle of cinema, because it's when you see it on a giant screen, I don't care how big of a screen you have at home, you're sitting on your own goddamn couch.
It's not this.
Yeah, it's not this here, and it's not everything about this. It's not just the screen, it's everything, and you know, walking around downtown and then coming in here.
Exactly.
You know, everything about it is going to give you a feeling. And you know, that's another thing, and I'm going off on a tangent.
Go ahead.
Here we go. Yeah. No, that's another thing that, you know, for me at least, that I've analyzed and tried to figure out for myself why I like watching movies that are shot on film so much more. And I think that for me, when it boils down to it is, you know, if we're talking about a film like from the 70s or the 80s or something like that, I think a lot of films shot on film now, you might not even be able to tell because it's so clean and stuff. But the extra grain, the extra not exact colors because of, you know, whatever print you're watching on or whatever, it gives you, and this is, you know, is a theory of mine, it might just be specific to me, but it gives you a like arm's length away from reality, and it lets you dive into the movie further or dive into the story further, because it's almost like you're watching, I wouldn't say a cartoon, but it's like you're watching something that is an image and it's like a painting or something, even though those are real people on screen. That's really Burt Reynolds there or whatever. But it gives you an extra distance, so you can, I mean, I don't know why this makes sense, but when you have the extra distance, you can dive in further and really see, you know, and really immerse yourself in it.
The more,
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of just been in my head, and I think that's what's so effective. And then you add on giant screen on top of it, sitting in a palace, you know, back in the day with those types of things.
Hell yeah.
And seeing something It's a bunch of weird fantasy type. Even if it's a drama about a bunch of people sitting in a room talking,
Exactly.
it still is a fantasy of some sort.
It's bigger than life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so tonight, or actually this whole month at the 10th Avenue, you're doing the January Giallo.
Yeah, well, tonight is our only showing here for the month.
Okay.
And we're showing January Giallo. We're doing, Jim from Cinematic Void started January Giallo, and he's been doing it every year. It's in Los Angeles, and a couple years ago he decided to expand it to other repertory, which is showing old school movies. It's repertory cinema, is what it's called. Repertory outfits like across the country.
Yeah.
And so we're doing our version of it here tonight for San Diego.
And Giallo, is that like a genre of horror?
Giallo is a subgenre, so it's an Italian created subgenre, and really the best way I could describe it is it's an Italian made murder mystery with most of the time slasher elements, and it kind of predates the typical slasher, if you want to think of that.
So early is this early 70s? Or?
Early, I mean the first movie that is the first technical Giallo is Mario Bava's The Girl Who Knew Too Much.
Nice.
And so that is from there, like that's actually a black and white movie.
Okay.
But Blood and Black Lace, another Bava movie, that's in the 60s as well. That's probably another one of the prototypical Giallos. But a lot of these movies they're always murder mysteries. That's kind of what you can say as a Giallo. It's always we're not sure who the killer is, and we're bouncing around, and then really what ends up happening. You want to say something?
Well, it almost sounds like you're describing film noir, so I'm wondering how it deviated from that path.
Well, film noir to me always it's kind of in a certain sense like from a first person narrative.
Okay.
Where you've got some guy who's trying to figure something out and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he is trying to not be a fuck up.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I always think of when I think of film noir,
Exactly,
which is cool.
Yeah.
But in Giallos, and this is, again, it could be a cultural thing, watching them, and as an American, a lot of the plots don't make any fucking sense. And it's like they'll throw something in there and it's like, oh, okay, like I would have never gotten that, or this was too dumb and I would have just dismissed it. But in the good Giallos, like, a lot of the Argento ones, like they'll give you what happens and you see it on the screen.
Okay.
And it's so blatantly obvious that this is who did it right away. And then you do the whole movie and you go through it, but then your mind plays a trick on itself, because it's like, wait, why? Are you sure it wasn't what I saw? And that's kind of what the point of it is.
To second guess yourself?
It's to second guess yourself and to kind of like think of your mind is playing a trick on you or something.
And is the director doing this intentionally?
Yes, in those, yes, absolutely. But some other Giallos are kind of like, maybe it's an editing thing, maybe it's a cultural thing, where it's something where it's like, wait, I don't really even know what's going on. But what ends up happening is you watch, there's a lot of like masked killers, there's a lot of killers with black gloves, there's a lot of really sexy ladies, and I guess that was the Italian industry back then, but incredibly beautiful women, and there's a lot of like fashion type looks to things, and there's a lot of like psychedelic type imagery with the cinematography, and that's really honestly the best part of the Giallos, for me at least, is really pushing the envelope with technical ability. Everything obviously was shot on film, but the colors and everything are just so amazing.
And would you say Argento's one of the top tiers it comes to?
I think Argento is the master of it. Definitely, I think he's considered that. And then there's also Sergio Martino, Umberto Lenzi. I'd say those are the top three guys.
And the one we're watching tonight, Opera, that is an Argento.
Yeah, that is an Argento.
Is it late Argento, early?
It's mid to late Argento. So we've been showing a lot of 80s movies for Popcorn Reef, even though the 70s is really, something we're going to be getting into more so as we go on. And I wanted to do something that fit with somewhat of like the programming we've been showing here. And Opera to me is my favorite 80s Giallo. I also like Phenomena, which he did as well, which stars a young Jennifer Connelly.
In the 80s?
In the 80s, yeah.
Okay.
And so I wanted to do Opera. It also means a lot to me because I went to see Jim do it at Cinematic Void back in 2020, right before everything shut down for the pandemic.
So right before.
Yeah,
like
and
early
he
2020.
presented it at the Egyptian Theater on 35 millimeter, and it was incredible. So I was always like, it was one of the coolest and most cinematic experiences. But we're talking about the spectacle of everything, the way it's shot, the exaggeratedness of the visuals and everything. And it's to me and I can't believe this is our first time with this big screen here, because it's going to be perfect.
Almost 4 years to the day, probably, since you saw that screening at the Egyptian. You have basically recreated it here. It's almost 4 years later.
Never recreate the Egyptian at all, but like it's.
But
this is gonna be for and we can't see the screen here, but I think for what we're doing with an underground venue, and really what I've aspired, and I'll talk about this, and I know people. Richard Stanley is a filmmaker that was canceled a couple years ago. He's made a lot of incredible films, but he's been accused of some pretty terrible things. But I remember hearing him talk about how he would go in. This was in a documentary he made. He would go into somewhere in the UK, and they had these giant kind of fading cinemas that, were big in the 1920s, 30s or whatever, but were kind of run down at that point.
Yeah.
And he would go in the 80s, and he'd be the only person in there, and sometimes even sleep in there when they're running these things on these giant screens. And that's how he learned about Argento and all that. And that's, kind of what we're going for with the look of this. And I think that it really is fully the experience. So I think that would be pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, 100%. This is a one-of-a-kind experience, and I'm just unfortunately, whoever sees this is going to see this after we're already going to have experienced this, and it's only I can't say, meet us next Thursday or whatever. It's happening tonight, so I'm just super blessed. This is a time capsule, that the first screening here is the Giallo night, and opera. Strip to Kill. Strip to Kill 2, would you consider that Giallo?
Oh, yeah. So let's explain that, too.
Yeah.
Because it's on the January Giallo bill.
Yes.
So really, a lot of Americans took some cues from the Italians.
Okay.
And the Giallos were a thing, in the drive-in circuit here in the U.S. in the 70s. And the grindhouse circuit, obviously, over in Times Square.
Yeah.
So a lot of filmmakers were inspired by that, and they made their own giallos. Like Brian De Palma is probably the best example. So he made Dress to Kill is a giallo. I don't think we can really argue that one way or another. Blowout is pretty much a giallo with John Travolta. Body Double is a giallo. Like, there's a lot of elements when you watch these movies. You're like, oh, this is from that, and it feels like that. And there's a lot of paranoia that in a giallo that is kind of unnerving. You don't really know why it's bothering you. There's like a sense of dread.
Yeah.
And De Palma totally captures that in the giallos he's made. But then there's, movies like Strip to Kill, or Night School is another one from the early 80s that are called, they're considered American giallos, because it's the same format. It's somebody's killing people. We don't know why. There's a lot of sexy ladies going on and walking around all over the place. And we've got, some issues and some graphic violence to deal with.
And these were American directors that were definitely inspired by what was going on in Italy.
And so Kat Shea, she started as an actress, and she's in Barbarian Queen, among a couple other things. And she was working with Roger Corman, and she got the opportunity to direct Strip to Kill.
Oh,
and that was her directorial debut.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And had she, what was her name again?
Kat Shea.
Kat Shea. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And this Strip to Kill was her first movie that she's directed.
Yeah.
So we get to see her. Oh, that's add another element to it when you watch it tonight. It's like she pulled that off.
And it really is a pretty awesome movie.
And was she inspired by De Palma?
I think that the whole marketing for Strip to Kill, it does follow a similar line to Dress to Kill. I mean, it is kind of the same plot and everything, so it had to be some sort of inspiration. But with Roger Corman, again, and Martin Scorsese made his first movie with Roger Corman. Jonathan Kaplan. Joe Dante,
he's like the Godfather.
Yeah, so all those guys got their breaks by being able to do a Roger Corman movie, but Roger Corman says, hey, you can do this movie, but we need these things in it. And I don't know what the origins of Strip to Kill were, but it might have been make Dress to Kill with strippers and then go from there. And
because he's thinking business too, right?
Right. And it might have been that, but there is, interesting salient points that come up, just like with all the other directors, even though the movie's called Strip to Kill, there's some cool stuff that happens in this movie.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And Is there a modern day Giallo? Is there any modern day Giallo films?
Modern day, I mean, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies by the A24 film that came out a couple years ago.
Okay.
I consider that a Giallo.
Okay.
There's a movie called Knife and Heart that was made, I think, in France. I don't know. We might have to cut that out because I'm not exactly sure.
It's okay.
But yeah, that was a recently made modern film that's a tribute to the Giallo.
And do they market themselves as
That's
Giallo?
marketed as a Giallo. I don't think Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was. I think that we kind of picked up on that.
Yeah.
And Malignant, the James Wan movie, is considered a Giallo too.
Okay. Fuck yeah. So basically, what inspired you to start Popcorn Reef? Because I know you kind of started screenwriting is what kind of got you into film. And when you watch films, do you watch it from a writer's perspective?
I think I end up doing that. Yeah, I'm constantly analyzing structure and, why things work to me. I don't really think I agree with, with like the screenwriter books handbook, if there is one or whatever.
Yeah.
I've thrown that out a long time ago. So I'm always watching stuff to see if I get moved by it and why. And I like to analyze why for myself.
Yeah.
And I really do think that movies force you to hold a mirror up to yourself, because I'll end up projecting my own shit into it. And it's like, hey, this guy doesn't know me, and maybe you would have a totally different experience with that movie. So it always gives me an opportunity to kind of look within. Yeah. No matter what it is.
And when you write, do you write personal? Do you write from stuff that's
I always have to write personal. I mean, I've tried to come up with stuff that, this would be fun to just write a little action movie or something like that, and just crank it out real quick. But it always ends up that things from my life get put into it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to just see a good film and be like, I want to write a film like that, where if you're not bringing anything from your personal.
I don't know if you can. I
think
right? Some people can. If you look at how prolific some writers and some directors have been, it had to be not that, but I don't know. Yeah. It always is something very personal to me.
But how did the idea, so one day there's no Popcorn Reef, and then the next day there is a Popcorn Reef. What happened?
Well, so me and Jim talked about doing a screening, like a collaboration screening down here. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to figure it out. We got the Regal Mira Mesa on board. And then, but really from there, after that first show, I was kind of like, is this going to be me doing this as like a hobby once a month, where I just kind of show what I want to show? Or is this going to be a business? Or is this going to be like an outlet, where this is going to be like a representation of cult film for the whole country in a certain sense, like this little section of it, or our own brand. So I realized I wanted to have more than just it being, hey, Eddie shows a movie once a month at the Mira Mesa Theater. And so I never really thought about it in terms like you just said, where it's like, how did it become how now it's a thing. But I think really it took a lot of me sitting down and trying to figure out what this brand represents. And I really don't think we've got it fully on. We haven't demonstrated that as far as all of our screenings yet, because Popcorn Reef is there's one wing of it, which is these cult films that we'll be showing here down in the 10th, and that tribute to the 70s and the 80s. And then there's another wing of it, which is bringing down the filmmakers and working with them to have a Q&A and talk about the films. And we've been working on that at the Adams Avenue Theater, and we got a lot of cool stuff planned for this year.
But also the Popcorn Reef website.
Yeah.
Just because you're such a great writer. Yes, because and you didn't even tell me, I just by reading your website and reading your emails, the marketing emails that go out and stuff like that, you can tell you're a great writer, because instantly you make a connection. You have a distinct voice, a distinct writing style, and it's just, and that's why I also think the Popcorn Reef website and just the content that comes from your mind is another part of it.
Yeah, when we try to write the whatever the show is going to be and describe the movies and all that, I do try to sit down and I figured instead of writing a review, because I don't really believe in movie reviews or movie critics or anything like that, I figured that if I want to do a writing on something, I try to talk about the thing a little bit before we show it too. But if I'm going to highlight a movie, then I'll talk about it, and I want to try to make it something that is inspiring and inspires you to go watch it, but is inspiring you to kind of challenge yourself a little bit and say, hey, I want to see this wild ass shit. This is interesting to me, and I'm going to give it a shot, even though I don't really know what the hell it is.
Because if you can't write anything about it, it's not probably even a film that you would want to screen, right? It has to be a film that inspires some kind
that's
of.
exactly what you're saying with my screenwriting as well. Is I'm not gonna put on. I'm not gonna pick a movie to just like crap on it by saying it, but I'm not gonna pick The Notebook, even though it's a great movie. That's not my movie.
It's not. Yeah.
I don't know why I picked that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. But the cinema actually is a great place for a date night in San Diego. Like, I mean, just like an alternative kind of way to kind of.
I think so. And I hope that, there have been a lot of couples coming here to these screenings, and I think sometimes it's maybe a little too intense with the programming here. But
hey,
the program we're doing over at the Adams is definitely going to be like, the other stuff that has inspired me is the stuff that I actually watched growing up, which was in the 90s and the early 2000s, and especially the comedies of that era. And we're going to get more into that. And then we're also going to get into really Southern California culture films, which we haven't been able to show enough yet of, because we don't have really enough of an audience that'll say, hey, we've proven we'll do the cult films and people will come for that. But
sorry.
I really want to, show movies, like, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. Like Savages, like Oliver Stone, the Winslow novel, like.
Are you an Oliver Stone fan?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, hell yeah, I love Oliver Stone.
Yeah,
I even is there a certain period of time that you like his films? I mean, Savages was more in like.
No, I like all of his films, honestly. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love Oliver Stone, the screenwriter. Scarface, Year of the Dragon, Oliver Stone. Like, I mean,
I just give him so much credit. He's just so committed, and he has his own style, and his films are so endlessly rewatchable. And I just love that even some of his films he was in a period of taking a lot of the risk, a lot of editing risk, a lot of all this stuff, and I don't think people give him enough credit for that. I don't know. Maybe they do.
I agree with you. I mean, like Natural Born Killers, the way that like everything was put together, where it's black and white, and then in the present, and using that. I mean, JFK as well. Like
Nixon too.
Yeah. It's just really like. I think he's awesome.
And it's not just style. Like I see a lot of people do it with style, but I think that there's a way of mixing style, and also if somebody's super, you could just tell there's so much substance to them. They've really done the homework and everything like that. They come from that writer perspective.
Absolutely.
You mix style with that.
I really respect Oliver Stone because he's always like, you can tell he's like a historian, not even just a film historian, but he's interested in capturing these eras in popular culture anyway. So he does his research and shit.
And then you hear about like the films, like when I read his book, or We're Chasing the Light, and like getting Salvador made and all this stuff. It's like, damn, these guys were huge risk takers. Like they were huge risk takers.
And that was, I wish that happened in Hollywood at all. But people that would want to do that type of stuff, I don't think would really make a movie nowadays, unfortunately.
But the thing is, there's phones and everything like that. So it seems like people can record stuff, maybe on a budget more now than ever, but it just, there's no distribution for it. Or maybe there is. I mean, YouTube, everything like that, but maybe it's harder to, I don't know what it is. What do you think it is?
I mean, again, I think that we can go back to the spectacle of things. So even though anybody can make a movie now and anybody can put a movie out, that's kind of a problem, because that's not really everything a movie is. A movie is also a giant fantasy that is unreachable, that you can't really touch.
Yeah.
And if it becomes something you can touch, then it's not really a movie.
It's disposable.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, that's why some of the strategies from certain streaming services, some of the streaming services have helped in a certain way because we're getting a lot more content, but some of the strategies from them of making a $200 million film and putting it directly on the computer, or that doesn't make any sense, because it's like, it's like putting on a concert, in a bathroom, or you know what I mean? Like,
but are we going to wake up to that one day? Is streaming just going to go away one day, you think? Or is everybody going to change? Or is streaming, is that just what it is?
I don't think that, I think that it's already happening. I think what's happening now is people are adapting, the studios are adapting. You're seeing what Apple TV Plus is doing with movies like Killers of the Flower Moon. Could you imagine that was going to be going straight to streaming? But now they're distributing it through Paramount, and they decided, hey, we're putting it out, and then when it comes to video, then it can be on streaming, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we get awesome movies like straight to streaming as well, like Good Burger 2, which wouldn't have come out in theaters. So we get that too. But then the other thing I'm trying to do with Popcorn Reef is letting people get that highlight where maybe we can show a screening one time of it, and we got to do that with Good Burger.
With
too
Good
as
Burger,
well,
fuck yeah!
over at
So
the
you
Adams
found your
Theater.
piece of that as well. That's
because again, my goal is to spectacleize things and to make it that event and stuff. Although it's an event as it is, you know.
But the only issue with streaming is I don't know if you've ever had this issue at night. Have you ever just been in front of the TV and you just keep hitting the right arrow button, and I'm just keep looking for a movie and I can't. I always think there's something around that corner that's maybe going to be.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really use streaming.
Oh, see, well then you see.
Unless there's a specific thing.
How did you avoid
it's
it?
Good Burger 2. I'm watching that. Otherwise, I own over 6,000 movies on Blu-ray.
But what if there's a new series on HBO Max or?
I don't watch it.
Oh my! Well, see, I I commend you. I commend you because it is it is a freaking thing, you know, where you're
trying to get the exact right thing. You're like, hey, I want this specific mood, and I don't really know if this is gonna hit it. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and it just feels like because there's always you have to press the button, and it goes to a movie that you can't see. So there's something always off screen that you don't know what the next one. Maybe they'll bring up some movie that I hadn't thought about in a while, and it's gonna spark something. It's happened to me before, but. It's just it's paralysis of analysis kind of thing. It's
I mean, that's what is it called? Like the paradox of choice. Because if you said, I mean, what they're saying basically is, hey, here's 10,000 movies and you have 3 different streaming services with 10,000 movies each on it. Pick one. How are you going to do that, right? Like, we're trying to take that away from you here at Popcorn Reef, even to another degree where next month we're not even going to tell you what movies we're going to show.
And see,
it's just show up here and then you can enjoy it while you're here.
And it's healthy for your mind. I'm telling you that is the way to go. When you're experiencing movies and everything like that, cut the streaming out a little bit. I know you can't maybe cut it out all the way, but you have to have a healthy diet of just basically let somebody curate for you. You don't have to take, you take the choice out of the thing. You picked for me. Opera, Strip to Kill. I would have never thought of that. Now I get to just come watch these films.
Have a night. And that's the point, is to have a night. It's not about knocking it off of a list. I mean, I've gotten caught up in that a bunch of times. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to see all of these movies. And it's really about, it's the journey, not the destination. It should be. Let's hope it's.
Have you ever listened to a movie podcast and they start mentioning even Pure Cinema Pod or something like that? They start mentioning all these movies and you're just kind of writing them down. And I'm thinking,
oh yeah, but I mean, I feel like half of my life is like trying to combat these urges that I have for these. Like, so I'll get something like that where I get there's a list of 5-6 movies, and then I want to put them together in a series and watch them at home and all that. And I've been able to kind of, what I do is I have that kind of in my head. It's like, okay, I'm going to watch that and then that and then that. And I won't do it all like in a day. I'll do it then. I'll do one and then I'll do another thing that I felt like watching the next night. Because the worst thing is like when you're like, hey, I'm going to watch all these movies this week. And then you're sitting down on Wednesday night and it's like, I feel like watching like a really light comedy right now. I don't want to watch this, even though I really do want to watch it. I don't want to watch it right now.
Homework. It ends up feeling
exactly. Then it becomes a chore. I just let them happen when they happen, and it always happens to me that that's how I've discovered and learned about movies so much, is that there's always another rabbit hole to go down. Like you watch something, and it's like, ooh, that actress was super hot. I want to see all the movies that she was in.
Exactly.
Or who was this guy that wrote this? I never knew he wrote this movie. I've been wanting to see this movie for a few years. I'm going to watch this now. And then they get added to the list, and then not all of them end up making the cut eventually. Right. Like, and that's why I have 6,000 Blu-rays. But
what is in the future, in the future of 2024, what is the next rabbit hole of cinema that Popcorn Reef is going to take us down?
Popcorn Reef. I mean, I hope that Popcorn Reef is going to take us down Canadian exploitation films, because that's a rabbit hole that I've been going down just random. I don't really know how it started, but like September of this year, I started watching these films. I've been excited, so I want to give a shout out to Canadian International Pictures, which is another newer company and putting stuff out on Blu-ray. But their singular mission is to restore Canadian films of every era. And a lot of things that I'd never heard of before, which to me at this point is like, something I've never really heard of. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of Canadian exploitation movies, but not like, these things.
Fuck yeah.
And so I saw a movie called Gina, which has just completely blew my mind, and I think was probably the coolest movie I've seen this year, or in 2023. And it's an exploitation movie, but it has a political consciousness to it, and it's directed by a guy. Dennis, and I forgot his last name. I couldn't pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
And we'll go back and we'll
I'll put it in there.
But it's directed by him, and he went on to direct a lot of very highly acclaimed films after. But he kind of was in this place doing, deciding to make an exploitation film, kind of. In the behind the scenes, he describes kind of for the wrong reasons, because he wanted to make a commercially successful film, but it ended up being more of a movie that he wanted to do anyway. So you get the meld of the two. Accidentally in that case, but to me, it feels like the Grindhouse movie that I've always been trying to want, like that I've been chasing and I never knew actually existed, kind of like the one you have in your head.
Yeah.
And it is incredible. And it's all set during the winter in Canada, and it's all snow stuff. And it is something else. So like after that, I started going down, and chasing out more of their movies. And, even though this is Popcorn Reef, which is Southern California explicitly themed, movie series, I think that there's a yin to that yang. And I think
100%.
that Canadian winter films are kind of like that perfect counterpoint to that. And I want to do a series of them if I can. We need people to show up though. You know what I mean? That's the only thing, is that I know no one's heard of that. I know. But these movies are incredible, and hopefully, as we build with time, we will have enough people in here to be able to support us
100%.
being able to show things like that.
Because Gina, now I want to see Gina. How can I see, like, if it's not screened here, do I go to that Canadian International Pictures website and just buy it?
And so Canadian International Pictures is a partner label of Vinegar Syndrome,
who
I mentioned before, and they have a ton of different partner labels that, if you go to vinegarsyndrome.com, you can buy the films directly through them. And you can also go, most of the films are available on Amazon if you buy, these are all on Blu-ray. Or on 4K Blu-ray.
But you can get the Gina Blu-ray directly.
Yeah, you can get that on Amazon. And then Diabolic DVD is another great place to shop for a lot of cult films too.
Fuck yeah. But it's good to see them at home, but there's no better experience than just basically coming here and seeing it.
Let's put it this way. I've already seen it at home, but if I can put it on this screen here and watch it, I will be blown away by it.
So that's a goal, Gina, in the year 2024.
That's my goal.
To see it on this big screen. That'd be fucking
I would love to see it.
Epic. So Eddie, I know it's almost showtime.
Yeah.
So Severin's gonna be setting up outside selling DVDs. There's over 100 seats here. It's freaking epic. It's gonna be a beautiful night. So I thank you so much for being the first official guest on the Movie Manny Podcast.
I can't believe I'm the first guest.
And it'll be awesome. And hopefully it's the first of many. Because I love having these conversations with you, and I would love to talk about all these films. It's exciting. Popcorn Reef, these films have it's charging people up inside. If it's doing it to me, it's doing it to other people. So it's fucking awesome. And thank you for these experiences, and thank you for bringing the film community together. We appreciate you.
Thank you for giving us the platform, Manny. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Dude, it's a good timing too, right? You got it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was all you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Good.
That was cool.